families who continue to follow running in the upper Midwest.
And we want to discuss important topics, inspiring stories, and extraordinary performances in running.
Welcome back to the Pivotal Running Podcast. Today, I have the privilege and honor to talk with the 2009 Army Athlete of the Year, 2013 Marine Corps Marathon winner, and three-time Olympic Marathon Trials qualifier, Kelly Calway. Kelly ran for the North Carolina State University cross country and track and field teams from 2003 to 2006, while also balancing the demands of Army ROTC. Kelly is an active duty U.S. Army officer who has completed multiple combat tours. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us here today. And let me just first ask you, it's been a while since we talked last. Can you kind of tell me what happened in this year of the pandemic?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, thank you for the awesome intro. I think you did more research than probably anybody I've ever done an interview with. So that was exciting. But yeah, 2020 and now into 2021 has been kind of interesting for me. So to kick it off, I had the Olympic trials in February, my third one. And unfortunately, I was really, really sick just before the trials. So I had a decent train up and was feeling really good until I was feeling really, really bad. And I had, aggressive fever and cough and a lot of symptoms that kind of sound like COVID now as I start to think about it. But that wasn't even really on my mind at that point. This was kind of a distant thing. And so I'm not sure what it was. Certainly there were no tests at the time, but I am always optimistic. So I went into the trials thinking I'll be better. I'll just get better. I did, rest and hydrated and did all the things that you could do. But come Atlanta, I lined up and I was, ready to give it a go and super stoked just to be there. And it just didn't go my way. About mile 9, I had to make a pit stop, which is very unusual for me. And I was struggling to run the pace that should have felt easy. And I was willing to just keep going. But I could feel that it wasn't going to be my day, and I certainly didn't give up. I didn't stop, but I definitely had to slow down to be able to finish the race. And unfortunately, my time was certainly not, I think, anything near what I'm capable of. And the weather was difficult. That wind and those hills, were just, everything kind of came together to be kind of a crappy day. But I was really honored just to be out there. Once I decided that it wasn't going to be my day, I was cheering, I was high-fiving my family, I was running, I was, helping other people along, and I got to see the event kind of for what it was. I was really proud to be out there in the largest field of women ever. It was amazing. There was a pregnant woman out there running. It was, just incredible to see everybody, and the streets were lined with people. We got to run under the Olympic under the Olympic rings, and when I crossed the finish line, I burst into tears. My husband was really blown away. He was like, "What? You were cheering, you were doing," and I just burst into tears. I was super emotional, not that emotional of a person normally, but it was a really moving event. I was very proud to be there. I felt like I had gone through a lot. I was very proud to finish the race because it was a struggle. And I was really just excited to be in the sport at the time with so many awesome women out there running. It was encouraging. And I just was really emotional about it.
Oh, that's quite the accomplishment. Yeah, just to think that, once again, a historic field, but even just, facing the adversity of not going in with not, under those conditions and not feeling your best, and still being able to, enjoy the experience.
Yeah, sometimes, you just have to make the most of it. Like I had to shift from plan A to, plan B of, hey, this isn't going to be the day I get a PR. This isn't going to be a day I might even come close, which I could tell at mile, 12, I wasn't going to get there. Things weren't getting better. But, I switched to plan B, which was just, enjoy it, be grateful, and, have fun. I had friends that came from, miles away. My family was there. My in-laws were there. And I just made the most of it and ran with a smile on my face because I was pleased to be there. And sometimes, it's not going to go your way, but rather than throw a fit about it, I just decided to embrace it. So that theme continues throughout the year, I think, because 2020, that was just the start of so many things. So of course, shortly after that, the pandemic really started and we went to lockdown. My kids were, sent home from school. One was doing online school. The other one, my preschooler at the time, now kindergartner, she didn't even have online school. So, it was tough, and I'm glad I had running. I was very thankful to be a runner at this time because so many athletes were left without their sport. They were not able to go swim. They were not able to play basketball with their friends. And I, relied heavily on just being able to go out for a run to weather the challenges and the stress of the pandemic. So that was crazy. And everybody was dealing with the craziness of that. But in May last year, almost a year from now, I was out hiking with my daughters and on a trail that I run on all the time, and, kind of a cool place, not too far from our house. We were still kind of on lockdown, and we were about 2 miles in. My kindergartner was a little tired at that point, so we decided to stop and sit by a creek, and she just got out the coloring book, and we sat down, and we were about 8 feet up off of this on a ledge, and all of a sudden I just got hit by something. I mean, there was no warning, crack, or anything, and I just was hit in my back and on my head, and I didn't know what happened to my children. So I was like, it was like a car hit me, and I was struggling to maintain consciousness. And I just knew, as a mom, that I didn't know I knew something bad had just happened to me, but I didn't know what happened to my kids. So I'm like really struggling and maintained consciousness. And was able to look over, and fortunately the tree branch that fell and hit me, it hit me and went off to my right. My daughters were sitting on my left side, and my 5-year-old got like a scratch on her leg, but was left unharmed other than that. And then my 12-year-old, now 13, she wasn't injured at all. But they were both terrified. And so I just switched right into, mama bear mode and was like, all right, we've got to get out of here. And it was like just crisis mode for me. My girls could tell that I was not in the right place. They were shaking and terrified. And so I just got them down from that position. We hauled ass out of there, and I got, we were about a mile away. So I got in the car and drove home, even though I was very certain I had a concussion, but I was like, I can just get home. Like my whole goal was to make sure the girls were safe. And then once I got home, I was like, oh my, something is wrong with me, So I tried to lay down, but I was in a lot of like pain. And so, but I still didn't want to go to like the ER or anything because it was the pandemic. And I'm thinking, you're seeing all these, hospitals that are being overrun with people, and I don't want to take a bed. And so I called the nurse hotline, and I was like, hey, I just got hit in the head and, by a branch. And the lady's like, you should be in an ambulance. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, are you sure? Because, I think I'm probably fine. I don't need to go in. And she's like, you absolutely need to go in and get checked out. So it was the fastest wait I've ever had in the ER. They put me in a wheelchair and immediately took me right in. And then it got pretty scary. So I was all by myself. My husband wasn't able to come in, and they did the first scan, and they saw that it had actually fractured my C7, which is the last bone in your neck, the one that sticks out the most. And so when it hit my spine, it cracked the spinous process, but all the way into the large vertebrae. And so the initial scan that they did, they couldn't see that there was any bone left covering the spinal cord. So until that point, the doctor was kind of low key. We were kind of chatting. He came running into the room. They immediately neck braced me, started prepping me for surgery. And, he was just like, "You're so lucky. You're so unlucky, but you're so lucky. You should be dead. And you definitely, you should be, and you might still be paralyzed." And I'm just like, what?
Whoa.
Everything I love to do involves moving and doing things like running and hiking and surfing and skiing. And I was just like, and then, so they braced me up and then took me in for a bunch more scans after giving me this like wallop. And I will say those scans were pretty hard, because I'm sitting in there in a mask and just thinking about all the ways my life is probably about to change. But fortunately, the next MRI came back, and they found there was a sliver of bone still covering the spinal cord. But so that was a bonus. But they then said I had to be immobilized for at least, well, it ended up being almost 2.5 months. But I had to be on bed rest and in a neck brace, because if the bone like went into my spinal cord, that it was too, I guess it was, not stable enough. And so I ended up coming home in, a neck brace. And then they also said they'd reevaluate me for surgery after 7 weeks. So I swallowed all that, came home. The first week I was in just a lot of pain. So it kind of was a blur. And then after that, it was, what do I do? I'm so used to being somebody who's going like all the time. And I was kind of traumatized from it, even after going through deployments and other hard things in my life. This was one of those times where I was just not expecting to have to deal with this, life-threatening injury. And so it was really hard to kind of come to terms with,
I can't. It's unbelievable what you're telling me, and having to go through that. And you've been through combat multiple times, and to have something like this happen to you, it's unbelievable. Like, this is, yeah.
And it
Please.
gets caught off guard. So I feel like I was, when you're in an unsafe, you're going to war. You're like, mindset, this could be bad, and you just like, you accept it. This was, a familiar hiking trail that I was on with my children, and there was no warning. I think that was what makes it so scary for me, is that, there's almost nothing I could have done to protect myself or my family. And the scariest part was my 5-year-old was, she was looking at me and she goes, "Mommy, if I had been sitting where you were sitting, I could have died." And I was like, "You're 5. Like, you don't need to be thinking, you don't need to be worried about this." But it was hard. My parents were really fantastic. They came up then as soon as I was released from the hospital. They drove up from North Carolina and they took the kids. I was at that point wanting to put them into a bubble and like keep my whole family in like, a bubble, never to go outside again. It was hard for me to let them go. But it was really a good thing, because I couldn't do anything. I'm a very independent person. I couldn't get water for myself. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't take a shower. Like, I couldn't do basic things. And I was relying on my amazing husband to totally take care of me, but he couldn't also take care of the children. So it was nice that they were gone. it also was just a really mentally tough time. Like I said, I was blindsided by it. So he was excited that I was going to be on bed rest because I never watch movies. I'm always behind on like every TV. I just never take time to sit down and do it. He's like, oh, Kelly, you could catch up on all the movies that you've never seen, and you could be like a real human. He was very excited. He played one movie. And
Oh, that's fun.
I couldn't handle it. I literally there was like a scene of like some slight violence. It wasn't anything egregious. It was too traumatic. Like I was still dealing with, coming to terms with what happened and how close it was. And every single doctor that I have seen since that has seen my scans is just like, you are so lucky. You was so close to, paralyzing you or killing you. And I'm like, thanks for the reminder, but I just came to terms with it, so.
Wow,
So I ended up reading a lot of books. I did a lot of studying for running and, did the coach's course. I also watched a lot of the Great British Baking Show. That was the only
nice.
But it was, and I learned to embroider, so, and then I went in for the 6-week appointment after having literally not moved. Oh, and I couldn't even sleep. This is the worst part. I literally couldn't lay down. So like I was in so much pain. But I had to sit up because I couldn't lay on the part that got hit. It was like my back. Chris said it looked like I got beat with a baseball bat. Like that's what my back looked like. And so it was at least 6 weeks, I was sitting upright. And I just remember like one day just crying. I just want to lay down and sleep. And the problem is their gauge that they gave me for anything that could be wrong is like, don't do anything that could hurt. So any movement really hurt, or, I was afraid to lay on my side and it also choked me in the neck brace. It was a lot. So that was a trying time. Got to go in for the scan, for the MRI for my 6-week appointment to find out if this 6 weeks was enough or if I was going to have to get surgery and then spend another however long recovering and on bed rest. And I felt like at that point I had been pretty good. Like I stayed marginally sane, which is, I think everyone expected me to completely lose it while I was not running every day. I mean,
I can't imagine what that would have been like. I know.
Yeah. My husband was like, you're on bed rest? Like he was scared. My family was like, are you going to make it? Everybody who knows me knows that I need to even, my soldiers would be like, ma'am, do you need to go for a run right now? Cause you're kind of crazy right now. And it's true. So, I was very proud of myself. I made it those 6 weeks, but then it was like, oh man, let's see. So the way that the spinous process cracked off, it's like cracked and there was a big, huge gap is really obvious when I saw the scans from the initial injury. So I'm expecting, we've all seen, some x-rays before. I'm still a layperson, but I'm expecting like that crack to not be there, right? I'm expecting the gap to have closed. What I saw was, so I always get like the x-ray tech to like show me a picture. That's my secret move. I'm like, I need to see this before I even hear back from the doctor. So they gave me all the scans. It was very exciting. But what I saw was this gap and like very, very little bit of bone at the bottom. You could see like the tiniest little bit of bone forming. And so I was panicked when I saw it. I'm like, wait, like, does this mean I'm going to need surgery? Does this mean that like I have to be on bed rest till like the whole rest of this thing comes together? And like, is it okay that my bones just like my vertebrae is supposed to be going like that? And now it's like, and I talked to the doctor and he was like, no, you're good. It's stable enough. You're going to be in this thing for another like month and then, it'll slowly fill in. So just don't do like sit-ups or like hit anything against it. And so I did another another, several weeks, a month in the brace, but I was able to ride the bike at that point, which made me slightly more sane. And I was able to like start walking around a little bit more, the stationary bike, obviously. And then finally, I was able to take it off, and they said, okay, you can start,
Wow.
you can start running with like, first I had to just be able to start walking. Like I thought like my head was just going to crumple over. I was like, I've just been doing this thing for so long that I'm going to take it off and just be like, oh. I couldn't, I was kind of scared to move my head. Like I
Oh
was
my gosh.
afraid to mess it up or whatever. And so it took a while, but they did eventually clear me to like run on the treadmill. And I did, they said 10 minutes, and that's it. And I have a head bobble. You've seen me run. I have this like, this little like head bobble that I can't correct. It just is there. It's one of those things that it looks funny, but like who cares if you're running fast, right? And I was what, am I gonna lose the head bobble? Should I lose the head bobble? Is it too much jostling? But I'm happy to report the head bobble is back nearly a year later. But I still kind of like get a little bit. It was hard to come back to running. I was running like this at first, like just being very protective of it. I'm not a treadmill fan. I know you like the treadmill. I'm not. And so, but I was just, I was happy to be running. I was like, look, I'm running like a 10-minute mile. Who cares?
Yeah. 10 minutes on the treadmill. What was that first? Yeah. What was that first run like? I mean, yeah, like you said, like you're so excited. But, I mean, yeah, just gotta take it easy and protect yourself
and out of shape. So,
Oh, yeah.
like, oh my gosh, my lungs have to work again. And I was really, I just went through a lot of being very scared because like I said, initially they said, just don't do anything that will mess it up. And I'm like, so then I was just afraid to do anything. I was like, don't, you have a reaction to like noises and other things where you want to turn your head. And I was so terrified for the entire time, until they let me come out of the brace, that I would accidentally try to turn my head and paralyze myself.
Yeah, that's so scary. I can't even begin to comprehend like what you went through. That's
cliff. So yeah. But then, so eventually I got back to running outside. Even turning my head to check for traffic was kind of scary for a little bit. But now, so into the fall, I ended up doing and winning a couple of trail races. Those are the only races.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing really that you
do it. And then I went back to like real training and was meeting up with some of my training partners. And actually, I signed up for the marathon project, and I was going to go out to Arizona and do it. I got in marathon shape again, which I needed. Like mentally, I didn't know if I would get there, which, I took the coaching class and I'm thinking, hey, I had a good run, pun intended. I had a good run. Like I'm happy with my career and my accomplishments, but I also have this, like, I'm kind of not done yet. So, but I wasn't sure if I'd ever be able to do it. And I was pleased to get to a place where, I felt like I could race. And then the marathon project was a really cool opportunity, but I just felt like it wasn't the most responsible choice to make. It was on the 20th of December, and I thought, in the middle of the pandemic, I don't have the vaccine yet or anything. And I was fortunate to have my family. We were able to do a family gathering that was safe for Christmas. And I've missed Christmases being deployed before. Like I thought, okay, what's more important here? That I go and do a race. I could run really well, but the most I'd get out of it is a PR. Or I could, I might also catch COVID while I'm out there, and then have to quarantine when I come back and not be able to see my kids and my family and, not be there for Christmas. I thought, plus it seems to me, there were people who were really going through a hard time in the pandemic, and it seemed almost frivolous to prioritize my running and potentially spread, I could have gotten it and become a spreader. I'm working in person with a tight group of people that are focused on national security, and we're mission essential folks. So I thought maybe I don't go and do this, which was really hard because, runners are goal oriented people, for better or worse. I'll run through anything. And so I pulled out of it. But I think as I look at it, I got out of that race, gave me the ability to know that I'm back. I had something to train for, and it got me back to where I felt like I'm me again. And I didn't let that damn log take me out, like I'm back to being me. And I was at a level where I thought, I can run a kick-ass marathon right now. So I got out of that race, I think what I needed, even though I didn't end up running it.
Yeah, that's amazing that, you retell that and that adversity. You've already faced a lot of adversity just being an Army officer and leading troops. Having to go through that. And I think that's an amazing story, Kelly. I hope to read, you got to write that as a book or something. It's incredibly inspiring, not only to me. I know that people are going to listen to this and hopefully just like get inspired at you're walking again, you're running again, and you're now like winning races and putting goals out there. It's really, really cool, Kelly.
Thanks. I will say on a windy day, I still get a little freaked out. Like today, it was so beautiful. I had to run outside. I couldn't justify running on the treadmill, but we had 30-mile-an-hour winds. And there were this happened actually in the first trail race back. There was like a dangling branch that I had to run under. And I get a little like, oh, do I do this? And even today, there were branches broken on the trail, and it freaks me out. But I also know you can't live your life scared. And I recognize that, and if I end up dying by being hit by a branch while running, I died doing what I love. So, and I really love running outside. So,
yeah. So how did running outside, how did just running start for you? How did this journey start?
Well, I was 8 and lived in Hawaii, and I take a step back. My parents are athletes. My dad played basketball in college, played for Coach K. My mom swam and then took up running afterwards. And they both were runners. My mom still runs every day at 61. And my dad would, if he hadn't had his knees replaced, he tried to sneak in a run with his new knees, and the doctor called him up and said, you can't. But they had both run marathons and were really into running. And I, as a young kid, was introduced. I always kind of gravitated towards it. The mile in elementary school, I was kind of like good at it, so I gravitated towards it. And in 3rd grade, I lived in Hawaii and as an Army brat, and I kind of was not accepted by people at the school. Just I wasn't from there. I didn't look like a lot of kids at the school, and I kind of got made fun of, and it was a tough year for me. And then my teacher, Mr. Wong, he coached the track team after school, and he knew that I was fast from doing the PE, the mile in PE, and so he invited me to come out. And I ended up making friends with everyone on the team. I had a group of people, and I started running like 10Ks. I got my mom to take me to like 5Ks and 10Ks and doing all these races. And I ran in like the state, track meet and stuff. And so I just loved it. Instantly I knew that this was for me. I have reports that I did on the Olympics and Olympic runners. I was a huge fan of FloJo and Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and I would watch all those people. And I still have these reports where I say, I want to go to the Olympics and be a runner. And I just gravitated towards it. And as an Army brat, I think I didn't know that I was getting into a really good group of people and a community that is worldwide, but I was, and everywhere we moved, and we moved a ton growing up, I had a set of friends instantly because I had runners, and we have our quirks and our, we are a unique bunch of people, and I love runners all over the world. Everywhere you go, you can connect over this thing that we just love to do. So I've enjoyed, the sport from track to cross country to road races and marathons to trail races. There's each one has its own like unique little little tendencies, but I just love running.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, at some point, you had to decide, this running thing is, I'm going to get a little serious. And what made you choose to take a bit more serious approach and go into college and say, hey, I'm gonna really, find out how good I could be?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe it sounds cocky. I just because my parents were college athletes, I thought, of course I'm going to run in college. But I do remember the first track meet, and I lived in Texas, in Killeen, Texas. We didn't have the best team or the best coaches at the time, unfortunately, but we did do this one race where there were collegiate athletes at the race. And I remember seeing this one girl who was fast and she was jacked and she had veins in her legs. And I was like, oh, and I think she ran for Baylor. And I was just like, whoa, look at that. And I thought, I gotta get there. But I didn't really have the coaching to get there until we moved before my junior year. And my coach, Don Beebe, he's recognized that I had talent and that I had the passion for it. So he really capitalized on that. And, he encouraged me. He was the one that was like, oh, you've got to run in college. And he actually threw out NC State before I even knew it was a school. Like, honestly, I knew nothing. I'd never been to North Carolina. I didn't do my research. I'm going to blame the fact that the internet wasn't as robust back then. But,
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything about the school or running in college, but Coach Beebe did, because he had coached several successful, athletes and knew the ropes and how to make it work. So I kind of followed his lead. We did the Blue Ridge running camp, which was life changing. Running camp, you go and you really live the life with the other run nerds out there, and you get to be exposed to different ways of doing things. And after running camp, I just thought, I should maybe run a little further. And I still remember I live very close to the running path on which I ran my first 9-mile run in the summer. I remember I ran 9 miles. And one summer I ended up earning like the longest distance award because I logged so many miles that summer. And that really turned things for me. I can run a lot of miles, and I run better when I run a lot of miles. So I recognized that summer, and I learned to put in the work. So I think, the desire was there. I just needed the right level of coaching, and that Coach Beebe, he knew what to do. He got me there.
Yeah, it's great. You had a smart coach that could definitely guide you in the right direction. That helps a ton. So now
one thing, do you mind if I
go
go back?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I had another youth coach in Virginia when I was in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, Coach Craig Chesse, who is passionate about running himself and about coaching kids. He thinks through how to coach through kids, and he's just a gem. He made it fun. I still remember things he did to this day, like we carried potato chips in our hands to show not to run with fists or like with knife hands. I was just stoked to like eat a potato chip. I'm like, how gross is that now? Like our little hands all sweaty. But he was just really good about making it fun. We did games after every practice. At the end, we would play tag. Turns out we ran a lot more than, we thought we were, because we were playing these games and doing fun things. And we were good. We went to the Junior Olympics and stuff. But it was still fun, and it wasn't like the level of intensity of a professional runner. We were still very much kids, and it was still very much developmental. And he is now my daughter's coach. So we live
Oh,
in the
wow.
same
That's
area.
great. Oh,
And
cool.
when we moved here, I looked him up, and he is coaching Vienna Youth Track, and he's still doing the same thing. And man, I just have mad props for any youth coach, because you're really inspiring kids to be, lifelong runners. You're teaching them at a very young age, and you have to have a lot of patience to do it. So mad props to those coaches out there that, coach youth athletes.
That's great. It's cool that you find such a world-class coach at that youth level. I mean, obviously made a huge impact on you, and now gets to do that for your daughter. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, and there's a big difference between, a good coach at that age who encourages you to love running and recognizes your talent, and a coach who gets really excited, almost overly excited about the talent, and coaches a youth athlete like a professional athlete. Because over the years that I was running, we went to the Junior Olympics, we ran, at a higher level, but we didn't run more than 3-4 days a week, max. And there were kids who were beating me back then, right? Who were training so intensely that they ended up burning out. I mean, these kids, we didn't even see them in high school, let alone college. And what a shame. And they probably aren't even running as adults, because they just, the burnout is real. And then you learn to hate something that you could love and embrace as a lifelong sport. And these kids were extremely talented. So there's just such a balance there in like encouraging and fostering the talent and the love, and also not burning them out. I find that's the hardest thing to do, but to kind of hold back, especially as a coach, when you see that level of talent. But I think it's so important, because the long game is life. I mean, the long game is life. I'm fortunate, I'm 37, and I'm still, am I 37? I'm 37 next month, and I still freaking love running every day. I look forward to it. I love track workouts, and I love races, and I have a community of great runner friends all over the world that I can meet up with whenever I'm traveling and go for a wonderful run. And these people, if you burn your kid out on that, you don't have that. It's
Yeah, Kelly, that's such a great coaching philosophy. I think, that's what would you offer, with all your experience in qualifying for 3 Olympic trials, maybe share with us, some of those lessons learned that maybe you could pass on to some of the runners who are just maybe even, whether it be trying to qualify for their state meet, or NCAA competitions, conference, or even chasing Olympic rings, or getting into the trials.
I would say have fun, which sounds counterintuitive, but I feel like most runners that are driven at the level of, that type of athlete, people who are driven to run really well at conference, run really well at districts, to achieve the Olympic trials. Oftentimes you can get so caught up in the, goal that you forget to have fun and really enjoy it. So I know I often think about, in 2012, I qualified for the Olympic trials for the track, in the 10K, and I ran a 33:11 that year. That was the B standard, and there were a lot of people who qualified, and I was on the verge of not getting on the track. And so my whole goal in life, and I was in WCAP at the time, so my whole goal in life was to run 32:45. I mean, I remember that time, and I'm not somebody who remembers numbers that very well, but I remember that time because I would run and I would think that time constantly, and I would do my workouts and I'd be like 32:45, 32:45. And I took away the love. I wouldn't go run on the trails in Colorado that I loved to run on because I didn't want to, twist an ankle because I wanted to run 32:45. And I thought, well, I can run faster if I go run on the flat. So I ran on the flat, even though my heart was up there in the mountains, my soul was out there on the trails, and I was doing everything to hit this time, and I lost the real true reason why I was out there. And I ended up not running 32:45. And I recognized that sometimes you want it too bad, or you're too focused on the goal and you forget about, what it really takes to get there. And sometimes you willing yourself to it isn't going to get you there. You just really have to bring the whole, person, and you have to have the fun too. So I don't know. For me, it's all about like, I can't get too caught up in the technology. That is not motivating for me. I have to, I do naked runs where you take your watch off and you just go. I mean, for the most part, I know a route is going to be a certain amount of time, but I'll just go without a watch. And it's so freeing to get away from all the technology that we have that tells you your pace at all times, and exactly what your heart rate is. And that, for me, that is suffocating, and it takes away from what I enjoy from the sport. It also takes away from what I know I can do. So if I'm out there for a tempo run and I'm so focused on the time, the pace that I'm supposed to be running, but I'm not listening to my body, I'm either overdoing it or vastly underdoing it. And I'm not dialing into myself. And I see that in a lot of young athletes because the technology is so ubiquitous now. It's accessible. You can run with a Garmin. That was really expensive and not not really fun to do back in the day. Now it's small, it's portable, but I think what's lost in that is checking in with yourself and figuring out, what you can actually do, because you're relying so much on the instruments to tell you what you can do that you don't necessarily have that gauge. And in a race, I mean, I've run races where my Garmin's died. Boston 2018 was so cold. No battery was going to outlast that. And I often don't even look because you're just running. For a marathon, it's a little more specific. You got to, kind of hold back for a while. And I'm not somebody to hold back. So I do try to, hold myself back for the first half most of the time. But I think anything less than a marathon, I don't even need a Garmin to tell me that I'm giving 100% or 95% or whatever. Like I'm calibrated to, I know how hard I can push myself, and that's because I don't rely on the technology too much.
No, that's great advice. Yeah, certainly sounds like you're dialed in and like you said, calibrated. Yeah.
Well, when I'm in shape. So that's another way I know, like, okay, if I've taken some downtime and then I go out, then I do rely on the instruments to tell me, kind of give me a gauge of where I'm actually at, right? Versus like, a lot of people do this. They take some downtime, or they're in an off season, then they try to get back to it and they just want to hit the time that they, well, my pace is this. Well, no, you've detrained quite a bit. Your pace isn't that anymore. And I think that's a cause of a lot of injuries. It's like these people set arbitrary times, and I do it too. It's not always other people, where you're like, well, no, my mile pace is this. Well, no, you're out of shape and your mile pace is a little slower. You can get back in shape, but you're going to have a harder time and probably cause yourself an injury if you try to jump the gun and start way up here when you really should be back here. And I think that especially when you're out of shape and getting back into shape, that's when the technology can really cause more injuries and actually more harm than good, because you're now not validated by your run. You think, oh, I ran so slow. I'm the worst. Why should I even go out there? And you're not just happy you went out for a run and pleased with the level of effort you gave, so I definitely, I get those like basic Timex watches, and I break up with any technology, all the Garmin, and I got this Apple Watch because my family was concerned that I'd get hit by another tree. But like, I break up with those things and free run with my no watch or a Timex often. And everybody should feel like you don't need to upload your run to Strava to have it count, or share it with the world. Like, you ran, you're going to get something out of that.
No, it's great perspective. Certainly in 2021 with, like you said, all this technology that we're immersed with, it really is difficult for young runners who are coming up in there. I mean,
I see with my high school athletes, they're so focused on the time, sometimes that they're, not giving the effort on the track, or they're, fiddling with the watch as they're supposed to be, like coming across the line. I'm like, run through the line. I will call out your time. You're going to have a 400 split. Yeah. I mean, you don't need to get it in the watch, or like, oh, I just need to get another 0.2. You don't need to get another 0.2 miles in. Okay. You've done the time, you've done the work. Running in circles for 0.2 is, you don't need to finish at an even point. You're good.
I think there's a lot of kids right now are pretty excited about that. The potentially for you to, offer your coaching services a little bit more than just that local high school, maybe.
Yeah, I love my Langley High School kids. I actually just ran by them today. We got a big meet coming up on tomorrow at Bull Run. But oh my gosh. Young runners. I mean, I coached at a running camp myself to give back, because of what I've gotten out of running camp. My dream would be to one day like open my own running camp that I could also like cross country ski at in the winter. This is
it's awesome. Yeah.
But like, honestly, I just think you get so much out of that. And I just see so much exciting potential in all these high school runners and college runners. I mean, the West Point marathon team, that was just a dream to coach. It was so fun. And the track team at West Point, and I get to coach a lot of the kids as the All Army coach that come right out of these programs. And, they just have so much potential. One runner in particular, Sam Coletti, she's deployed right now. She didn't get to have her entire senior season because of COVID.
Wow.
She didn't get to run and have her, her awesome last year of track. And so she just started running. She just started like doing longer runs and found out that I think she's got a lot of potential as a marathoner. Now we just need to have a marathon so she can race.
That's exciting. Definitely. Let's talk about like this huge potential for maybe even just not only the Army to recruit women as women runners into the service, but also, expanding other, services too. I'll ask you, is there any, what would you think about, widening the aperture to maybe go after, this specific demographic when you look at, kind of the, the fourth generation capability of these runners. I mean, let alone that there be, women, female. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, when you're putting out that type of performance, and that's certainly excellence.
Well, that is a huge goal of mine, is to, spread the word. All Army athletics, WCAP aside, which is an amazing opportunity, all Army is something that has been a motivator for me throughout my career. You have a team, which who has a team post-college? I mean, pro athletes, even most pro athletes don't have a full team. We have a team of, men and women, fantastic runners, and soldiers, freaking professionals that are, awesome and doing things. We come together for 3 to 4 events a year. It's all paid for, and you get to go run with Army on your chest. I mean, just, you're running for all the soldiers that are out there deployed. You're running for your country. It is the most inspiring team to be on. And we just need to spread the word. And we certainly need to get, more women athletes, more women athletes, more women runners in the military. We need to get more of our ROTC kids. So we have a large number of West Pointers that know about All Army and know to apply, because it's easy to reach in and identify those people. But in ROTC, it's not as easy. And I came from ROTC. I wouldn't have even known. I just happened to run on my post team in Hawaii, and somebody saw that I ran a really fast time. I think it was Liam Collins, and recruited me for All Army. I had never heard of it. And then I didn't actually even know that WCAP was a thing, the opportunity to run as a professional athlete and an officer or soldier in the military. You not only have a follow-on career, which most professional athletes don't necessarily have a guarantee of. You get, paid benefits, healthcare as a professional athlete. I didn't even know that that program existed until I was in the Army for 4 years. We have so many opportunities that we need to just spread the word and educate people on.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I mean, that's an incredible opportunity that you got to be a part of, and certainly, future people get a chance to maybe dip their toe into and pursue.
Yeah.
All right, Kelly, let me ask you, what is your favorite type of running? Cross country, track races, or marathoning?
That's a tough one. I love them all for different reasons. I can't even pick just one. I can't. I love them all equally. It's like children. Don't make me pick a favorite.
No, it's kind of a tough question. Yeah.
So here's my philosophy. You need them all. Cross country makes you tough. I think it's the perfect sport to start off the year. You have to go through the mud. You never have the same course. I think you have to endure, different terrain, and you don't get stuck on times because every course is different. And, you have to learn to adapt. You're dealing with difficult weather because it's the fall, and who knows? I don't know what happens in South Dakota in the fall.
Snows.
And I remember being in Texas in high school, there was one time where there was so much mud. Actually, the girls ran and then the boys didn't even have to run. They canceled the meet, but people's cars were getting stuck. That's how much mud there was. Running in Europe once I ran on a horse trail trough that was very narrow and challenging to even just put your foot down into, to obstacles and stuff like that. The bottom line is you don't know what you're going to get. So you need to learn to be flexible, and you need to learn to adapt, and you need to learn to be tough. And that just all combined, I think that creates the grit that you need to get through the rest of, running. So then moving on to track, you need the track. At some point, you got to get on that known distance, and you got to give it all you got. And track, you're laying it all out there. You don't get to hide. It's an oval. There is nowhere to hide out there, and there's stands, and everybody's watching, and you got to give it your all. And sometimes it's really hard. You're running, the indoor track, running the 500, where they're just run it like a 400. It's not 100 more meters. It's brutal. You just want to barf. To running an amazing 4x4 where everybody comes together and there's people cheering on the sides of the track and they're going whoop, whoop. And you're on a team and you're all high-fiving afterwards. There's nothing like that. But track, you need to just test yourself. You got to get out there, and you need the speed. Too many marathoners and road racers don't go to the track, and you got to go to the track. Even some of the distance kids that I see in high school and college are well, I'm not a sprinter. So I'm you got to be able to run fast to run far and fast. You need to be working. And what I see a lot of kids lacking is, really pushing that anaerobic speed, those shorter, faster. They think, I'm not a 100-meter runner. Listen, I wish I was a 100-meter runner. I would kill to be a 100-meter runner. That you get all the glory and you don't even have to do the hard work. I mean, it is hard, like, but you're naturally like, you don't even have to think during your race. You don't even have that extra mental aspect, like it hurts now. You're just like so fast. But even distance runners need to get out there and do that, because you've got to train that anaerobic speed. So shorter distances, and you can't hide. You cannot hide. You can hide on a cross country course. You can hide during a road race. You can hide during a marathon. On that oval, everybody sees everything. So you don't get you overcome that fear of giving it 100% when you get to the track. You overcome that fear of what's going to happen when I push myself this hard. And you learn that sometimes you can push yourself even harder. Okay, so now on to road races. Road races are like all about fun and glory. I love it. Like every road race I've ever won, like there's been people around, you break the tape, everybody celebrates for you. There's like a check involved. It's amazing. Like, I am awesome. You're like a rock star for a day. That does not happen. I ran my PR at Stanford Invitational on the 10K, and I finished. I qualified for the trials. I was like, yeah, there was nobody. They're like, get off the track. We've got another. I was like, but where's the? Yeah, what? Where's all the confetti? There was no confetti cannon, but it is the road. So the road races are really fun and super motivating, especially for people who maybe aren't at the top of the running game. A lot of people are afraid that they're going to be the last one out there. You're not going to be the last one out there. There's somebody that'll be behind you, and what you gain from getting out there, being around others, that collective motivation. Most people, end up having a blast and really enjoying themselves, and that's like the ultimate motivator right there. So, and then the marathon I love because it's just like, it's a gut check. My first marathon, Marty, I was so stupid. First of all, I didn't train. I was like, I ran 85 miles a week in college. I don't need to train. I did long runs. So I went into it just completely ignorant. Then I was like, who needs gel or water? Like, I don't need that stuff. So again, ignorant. Then I was like, well, like I'm just going to run fast. Did not hold back. Ignorant. It all hit me right around mile 18 and then just suffer fast the rest of the way. I mean, I was like rigor mortis trying to cross. I was like, my muscles were locked up. I was like the Tin Man, but I got across that damn line because I said I'm maybe irrationally goal oriented and motivated. So I made it across that line. I was in so much pain, but all I could think was, first of all, respect the marathon. And like most people just see 26.2 miles written down. They're like, yeah, no, I respect that. Not me. And there are some others like me out there that are like, I got this. No, you don't got this. You got to train for this. You got to plan for this. This is serious. And then I was like, number two, I can't wait to do this again because it's so painful, because you can't just force your way through it. You have to plan. You have to run smart. I've learned something every single time I've run one. So if road races are the ultimate motivator, marathons are like the ultimate, humility. I mean, they like really make you learn they make you grow up. They make you focus. They make you, there's something that you can change and alter. It's like you get to calculate what your fuel plan is, what your race pace is, your shoes, your this, your that. You can pretty much make it through any race shorter than a marathon without doing all these logistical calculations. But a marathon has to be beautifully planned out. So when it goes well, it's a magical experience. It's amazing when it goes well. I ran 2:37 at the 2012 Olympic trials. I think I floated through it. I don't even it was so just everything came together. I ran perfectly even splits the entire time. And I finished and it was just like, oh, and that's when it comes together, it's beautiful. when it doesn't come together, you're forced to deal with tough conditions. So Boston 2018, tough conditions, 32 degrees, pouring down rain, wind in your face. Some people would say, why would you even run? And I probably should have said that to myself, but like eternally optimistic, thinking, of course it's going to change. It'll get better. I'm glad I gutted it out. I ended up finishing 15th in that Boston Marathon, but I also got hypothermia. I'm
Wow.
delirious for the last probably 4 miles. So my friend Kira D'Amato and I, we were going back and forth for that, right? Like we started together, we were warming up together, and we went kind of back and forth in that race. And I saw her like 5 miles before the end, maybe 3. And I couldn't even, I was like, like I couldn't articulate words. I just kind of like blurrily saw her. And that was a tough experience, I endured tough conditions and made it through. And once again, more respect for the marathon, marathon.
Yeah,
15, Kelly, won.
it's cool that you actually had a friend to kind of go through that with too.
Well, and honestly, all of us that have been through it. So I coach an athlete who ran the 2018 and the women's elite start, there's nobody around. So you're just like battered by the wind and you can't even tuck in behind anybody. I'm seeing women like drop out in front of me and I'm just like, it seems really like a good idea, but I'm just going to keep going. But all of us that like went through it, you like, oh, Boston 2018, you get that look like, I did. You finished? Oh, yeah. And you just instantly have this bond because anybody who made it through that, you're like, high fives. That's impressive.
Yeah. So are you going to head back to Boston then, for the 125th?
Ooh, I don't know.
Catch good conditions maybe this year. I don't know.
It's a little up in the air. My husband's from there, so he's always all about like, who run Boston? And yeah, I would love to go back and run it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Get you back. What sort of insights do you think military service gives you towards becoming a better runner and a better leader?
Well, I mean, nobody does leadership training better than the military. And that is hands down across the board, every aspect of, the private sector and other government service. The military really trains leaders and leadership. And I mean, I was 22 as a platoon leader, and you are instantly given so much responsibility right off the bat, and you also are you have to learn, and we have such a unique system where you learn from your NCOs and you learn from your soldiers, you learn from older officers. It's incredible. I'm always humbled and extremely impressed by the people who give their lives to military service. The cool thing is leadership is somewhat easier when you have groups of dedicated professionals, and it's always amazing to me everybody's origin story for serving in the military. How it connects to running, I mean, for me, I guess I didn't recognize how connected running was, but in the military we have we have physical fitness tests that we have to do, and we do PT every morning. And it was not until I was doing my master's in kinesiology and my I was discussing actually for some of my thesis work with military members who had the flip side of my experience. So my experience is that I've always had, I've always been athletically inclined, maybe not with hand-eye coordination, but don't throw a ball to me. But, I've always been a good runner, and in the military, we do a lot of running. And so I benefited from that because people saw, that talent. And on the flip side, I've heard from, officers and soldiers who've had a hard time with running and who were less athletically inclined, and that was like a challenge for them. So I'd say running has certainly helped my military service because I I was always able to perform and connect with my soldiers that way, and but talking with the people who had a different perspective was also eye-opening to me because I recognized that, I benefited from this and not everybody has the same love of running that I do. So, it made me become a better leader because I was able to, kind of empathize more with the people who were less inclined towards running and also just really be really grateful for what running has given me. Um, and then I will say, how has the military made me a better runner? That was the second part of the question. Or
Yeah.
how does the military help people run better?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it exposes you. I think there's a lot of people who grow up and they don't have, the athletic family or athletic experiences that, I had growing up, and some other people. So I think a lot of, our young soldiers and a lot of our young officers are, shown what they can do through this physical activity of running. And I've helped a lot of soldiers along the way. It's been really gratifying, and it really makes me, reconnect with, beginnings of running or just overcoming challenges in general. But you see people who are struggling and then you put them on a training plan and you really help them. And that's something that the military does really, really well is that we don't just give up on somebody and say like, you're bad at that, deuces. We work with them and motivate them and give them the tools to become better at it. And I've seen, soldiers who were, failing PT tests and not actually doing really, really well or, becoming lifelong athletes or runners and doing road races and things like that because they were exposed to the sport in the military. And that's just so cool that we can, bring that to people and it makes their lives healthier and, some would say more fulfilling. And they can spread it with others. So I think that's really a cool aspect of, running and the military.
Yeah, that's great insight on your leader development as well. So thanks for sharing that with us. I have a question about reform and running related reforms. Certainly, the governing body of IAAF just went through sort of a scandal. They had to change their name to World Athletics. What sort of reforms would you maybe see that could be very helpful with the ethical decision makings that are made in the governance of this sport that we really are passionate about, both marathons and track and field?
Gosh, I would just say I don't necessarily know enough about the policies, and I should know more, and I should educate myself on that. Where I see our sport failing is in marathoning in particular, but also sometimes in track is like marketing. So ethics aside, I don't know enough about the policies and the inner workings, and that's on me. I should definitely get better at that. But I do see so many opportunities for our sport to be better at representing the entire field. So, like in an elite marathon, oftentimes like the camera is on the first person and that's it. And they're just like, "Meh, there's the number one runner. Oh, look, there's one number two. Now back to number one." And then they're like at a loss for what to talk about. If you've ever watched the Tour de France, which is fascinating.
It's
super
fascinating. Yeah.
they don't just cue in on the first person all the time. They go back in the field. They know the stories, their human interests. They're talking about people and their lives. And I just think that's such a missed opportunity for our sport. We have like one camera that, is in the front of the pack and that is it. And they just zoom in on the one person. And oftentimes they only really know about the favorite. They can barely talk about the people. I never watched the broadcast for the Olympic trials for 2020, but I heard that was the case, that they were like struggling to come up with material. And I've seen it in other races where they know about the stars, And then kind of everybody else are just like, so why not have, the motorbike cameras going through the field, obviously not like hitting people, but like you can do it safely and have a media lane where they're driving. There's so many people who tuned in to, okay, just take the 2020 trials specifically, who tuned in because they knew one of the people in the historically large field. And they were waiting to see the person that they were cheering for on the screen, and they didn't see them because we have such a myopic view of how to present this information. Yes, people care about the winner, but if you only watch the person on the football field who's scoring the touchdown through like a telescope or like tunnel vision, even the football game would be less interesting. I mean, I'm a huge baseball fan, and a lot of what I like about baseball is the human interest stories of watching people on the field, and not everybody is the superstar. And I think our sport needs to develop the stories for the middle of the pack and athletes. And I think it would be more interesting for everyone, and you would get more fans out there. I don't know what your take on it is, Marty, but
Yeah, no, I think the commentary would be wonderful. I think you should maybe give a try at some race commentary. I think it would be so, yeah, no, it would be so cool. I mean, so you're at a race, right? Whether it be track or on the roads, and with modern technology assisting you and presenting you a certain view of the field, I mean, you'd be able to talk through races just like you are talking to me. It would be awesome. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so many cool opportunities out there, and there are amazing athletes. Every time I go to a race, oftentimes you're, at an elite race with their, paying for you to stay somewhere, you get roomed with a random person you've never met before. And I've never been roomed with an uninteresting person. Okay. People have amazing stories that are so fun and so different from the way that I grew up, the way that I came to running. I've roomed with people who, grew up in Ethiopia, grew up in Kenya, grew up in Nebraska. Like all of these are different experiences than what I had. And they're doing it for different reasons. I think we just are missing out on like some super cool stories.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing you tell a lot of those stories in the future. It'd be
Maybe
cool to
nudge me for these things. Yeah, I need
deal. I mean, that would be fun. I'll just nudge you and you tell the story. I mean, it's just great to sit down with you and spend a lot of time just kind of hearing your story. And thanks so much again for coming on this podcast, and once again for all the things you're doing, not only for the Army, but for really moving this sport in a positive direction.
Well, the sport's given me so much, and I know you too, Marty. I mean, I truly love it. I am so fortunate. Every day I get out there, even if a run is bad, and I'm just stoked to be running, quite frankly, because I easily, very quickly could have been taken from me, and it just makes me grateful for every single day. And I'm always happy to talk about running, to share running. I would put it out there for anybody who listens to the podcast. Like, if you're interested, I do coach the All Army Sports running team. And, I'm happy to talk about running for really anybody who's out there who's interested, who has more questions, and certainly more questions on how to run in the Army, because I think that's a really unique program that we have.
So Kelly, how can anybody find you, and where can we keep up with you?
Gosh, I'm terrible. I took a break from social media, but I'll still be on Twitter sometimes at Wiki Gazelle.
Okay.
And but yeah, I found kind of like my tech breaks from running. I had to take a break from being on social media. So it's been kind of healthy for me, but also sometimes I feel disconnected. So I do check in from time to time.
No, you're incredibly focused on the people that you're pouring into right now. So I just thank you again for spending time, that precious time with us and just sharing your story. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks for joining us this week on the Pivotal Running Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, pivotalrunning.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you simply would tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Thanks.